Hi, we're here with Darren White, U.S. Secret Service regional agent in charge, Eastern Europe, retired. We're here in his office from South Carolina, U.S. Hello, Darren.
Hi, nice
Thank
to
you
see
for
you.
the interview.
Thank you, you're welcome. Good to see you, welcome. Bunvenit.
Thank you.
Mi casa.
So, you were in charge of the whole Eastern Europe.
For U.S. Secret Service, yes.
Yes.
From November of 2009 until February of 2014.
But your office was in Romania.
Bucharest, Romania, the American Embassy. But because we were a regional office, we were in the 8 countries that surround Romania constantly. So, lots of miles, lots of good people, lots of great friendships. In fact, that's why you guys are here.
Yes.
Great friendships.
Thank you. So, the news from Romania. The missile defense system in the Veselu was declared officially technically functional a few days ago.
Mhm.
How will it influence Romania foreign relations?
Foreign relations, whenever you have any type of technical or, in this case, a missile defense system, you're always going to have people who are cheering and you're going to have people who are not cheering. So to answer your questions as it relates to foreign relations for Romania, all the peace-loving people, the peace-loving countries, the people of goodwill will stand firmly behind Romania's decision to join forces with the United States for the sake of the preservation of peace. So when you have a missile defense system such as the one that Romania and the United States have agreed to put in place and make it operational, of course it's going to be a symbol of peace. That's the single most purpose for a missile defense system. It's a very defensive system. That means you're to defend, not, as the Russians might suggest, something offensive. No, it's a missile defense system. So it defends against attacks. It's not an offensive system.
Okay, but the Russians still think that the missile defense system in the Veselu is directed against them. Are their fears justified? There are still Romanians who are afraid that the shield from the Veselu will place our country in the middle of a conflict USA-Russia.
Mm-hmm. Quite easily to understand. And here's why. Fearmongers and people who are misinformed within the general population of Romania, I can see how easily it is for them to misunderstand the system to be a catalyst for conflict. And it's the exact opposite. Just like I would tell the Russians or the Romanians or anybody else who are misinformed, by the way, they know very well what the system does. There may be some jealousy on the part of the Russians where it comes to the strength and the partnership of Romania and the United States. If the Russians had a missile defense system in Romania, I can promise you they will not be complaining. So that's the whole crux of it. They want to be in the position where the U.S. and Romania, they would prefer it be the Russians and the Romanians. And in all fairness, they had their opportunity to partnership with Romania and not make it antagonistic, but make it more of a friendly partnership. They've not done that.
I understand.
Thus, the Americans are there, being strong, solid, unwavering partners for Romania.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that creates a lot of jealousy, of course. And the people on the other side of the fence, being the Russians in this case, will try to present the system as something to fear, something that might work against the Russians. The only thing that's working against the Russians is they're not in the place of the Americans. And it's not necessarily the Romanians' fault or the Americans' fault. So there's only one other country you can get the answer from that.
Okay. Talking about Russia, how do you comment that Russia is trying to regain influence in the entire Southeast Europe, like Hungary, Moldova, Ukraine?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Romania is surrounded by countries that are guided more by the Moscow's policy.
On the surface, it might appear that way, but you have to remember that also Romania is addition to Romania, Romania is also surrounded by NATO countries. So one could understand where Russia might want to increase its influence, because one of the leaders, and I'll say this, it was a world leader, who, well, it was on CNN, so I'll just say this. President Obama said that Russia is a regional power and not a world power. I don't think that the Russians took that in the right way, and so they want to flex their muscle in response to probably a number of things that the American policies are that are in place right now. So when you see what happens in the Ukraine, when you see Russia's influence in the Republic of Moldova and in Hungary and a few other places, even in Syria and Turkey, of course, one doesn't want to feel like they've been reduced to a regional power versus a world power. And so, of course, you're going to see the Russians respond and react. And it's not turned out very well for them because of the economic sanctions, because of other world leaders that have shown the Russians because of probably ill-advised decisions on the part of the Russians.
Okay. It's been a year since Mr. Klaus Iohannis is the president of Romania. How do you see Romania after this year?
As we would say in American circles, the jury is still out. I think it'd be probably too early to draw conclusions. And in all fairness to the president of Romania, the current president of Romania, Mr. President Iohannis, I think it's fair to say, let's give him a fair shake. Let's not rush to judgment. And in addition to that, Romania has a role to play, but the partners of Romania also have to meet President Iohannis halfway. So I wouldn't be too quick to sling mud or cast doubt towards President Iohannis. I would say let's look at the whole picture concept and see how Romania's partners are meeting the Romanian president halfway. So it's a two-way street, and I can't say that there's a lot of negative things to say about the current president of Romania. Let's just be fair and give him a chance.
Okay, in 2015, many Romanian MPs were investigated by DNA for corruption. A little part of them were arrested. The parliament's credibility is down. The president seems a little bit overwhelmed by this situation, especially as he was accused of corruption. The Romanians think that the corruption will never end, and they will always have to choose between corrupted politicians. How do you think Romania can fight against corruption?
You know, this has been an ongoing battle. It's been an ongoing issue for Romania. It's been an ongoing issue for Romania in the eyes of the international community. For example, you're being in the United States, if someone said, hey, there are two Romanians over there, people will automatically think, oh, they're cyber criminals, or there's corruption going on, or there's some thefts going on. That stain on innocent Romanians in the eyes of the international community, it goes directly back to the leadership of Romania, or the lack thereof. You have too many people pointing fingers, and nothing's getting done. For example, just recently you saw something in the press where the American ambassador was speaking to President Iohannis saying, hey, what about corruption? That falls at the fault of the United States, and it also falls at the fault of the Romanians, because time and time again, all you hear is talk. Nothing's been done. And when I was there, actively as the regional agent in charge, based out of Romania, time and time again, we have these discussions with the Romanian leadership. Part of the problem is the Romanian leadership, because they're not doing anything about it. And what happens is that people in leadership positions outside of your parliament, they point to the parliament as the problem, because members of your parliament are certainly corrupt. Everybody knows it, but nobody's doing anything about it. I wrote a blog saying, hey, and I took a lot of heat for this. It's still part of the answer, part of the solutions. I think it's embarrassing, And I think it's unfortunate that folks outside of Romania have to come in and take a leadership role in order to stamp out the corruption. Because what happens is, when the people of Romania go through an election, it's what we call pick your poison. When you get rid of one corrupt member of your parliament, the people in line to take his or her place, they're even more corrupt. So this vicious circle of corruption in Romania will continue. My suggestion was bring in a Brit, a member of the British political community, an American, a German, and maybe someone from Italy or Spain. Have them come in and see if this plays in Romania. Everybody's going to go ballistic because they're going to say, oh, wait a minute, somebody outside of Romania is going to come in and be a part of the parliament in order to stamp out the corruption. If you don't do that, look at where we are now. Look at where we were when I made those comments, and I got all kinds of hate-filled messages from the Romanian community. So that's part of the problem as well. When you talk about solutions, and when I said bring in non-corrupt entities like Americans, Brits, Germans, Italian, Spaniards, and then you're going to have a presence of non-corrupt. Because right now in the Romanian parliament, what you have is a corrupt amongst the corrupt. And you know what? They can say all the hateful things about me as they want. But they're not coming forward with any solutions. Nothing that's workable. You know why? Because it's still very corrupt. So, to spew hatred against me, because I'm coming forward with a viable solution, the only thing they can do is spew hatred because they have no answers. That's not leadership. That's why it's still corrupt, and it's going to continue to be that way until somebody with the intestinal fortitude or the backbone to say, hey, wait a minute, that American guy was right. In order to stamp out this corruption, we got to bring in non-Romanians. It's sad, it's embarrassing, but it's the truth.
Okay. Exactly in this moment in Romania, there are rumors that the Minister of Justice won't give another mandate to Laura Kövesi as chief of DNA. How do you comment?
You know, we have to do two things. We have to have a fair assessment of Kövesi's performance. And then the second part of that is that who are you going to replace her with and why? What are their credentials? Because the worst thing that could happen is if you replace Kövesi with someone who is less aggressive, less intelligent, less determined, and not objective in going after corruption because it's such a critical position, because Romania is rampant with corruption. So you almost have to question every single move and find out what the motive is. Once again, when we talked about going after proceeds of a crime, or fruits of a crime, or asset forfeiture, asset recovery, we brought in specialists, and Romania rejected it because they were too corrupt. So, in other words, when we had the conference on corruption and corruption and asset forfeiture, Romania wanted nothing to do with it because we were going to go after the bad guys, and it would have revealed or identified too many corrupt politicians who were on the take, judges included. So it's a very sad situation. Romania is a part of the problem, by the way, because they wouldn't allow their partners to come in and help clean it up.
Why do you think this happened?
Well, because the people who are corrupt are the ones who are running the parliament and throughout the cabinet positions across the country. If they cut down the corruption, then they cut their cash flow because they're benefiting from it, the judges, prosecutors, all of them. We know it because we were embedded there and we know exactly what's going on. So why would judges, prosecutors, parliament, and Romanian leadership, why would they cut their cash flow? Because it's the greed factor. They are so intent on getting what they can get. And then poor people in Buzău, the poor farmer in Buzău, who makes, a couple of lei per day just to get by to feed his family. And then you got corrupt politicians who are living high in Stăjardi, driving around in a car that's worth 300,000 euro. I know because I lived in Stăjardi. So I'm not making this up. I'm not going out for rumors. I know. I lived there and I saw what happened. We know what's going on. Romania needs to clean it up. They're not going to. You know why? Because the cash is flowing. And it's flowing in the hands of the corrupt people who are ruining Romania. Romania is such a beautiful country. great people, great history, great terrain. The geography is great. Romania has 41 counties. I was fortunate enough to visit 35 of them. Great people. The best people to be around are the ones that are hardworking, honest people. And then you go to the parliament, 85% of the parliament is corrupt. All of them are taking bribes. They know it. They get mad when I speak out against it. The United States needs to be more aggressive in holding Romania accountable. And there are tons of ways we can do it. We need the right leadership as well. Don't just point all fingers at Romania, because Americans are just as guilty for turning a blind eye to it and then having a conversation, walk away, and then the corruption starts again. What happens is when we call out Romania and call them on the carpet about corruption, they chill out for a little bit. And they're, okay, hey, the Americans think we're doing something about it, and then they go back to business as usual. That's a lack of leadership on the part of the Americans. Don't just dump everything on the part of the Romanians. No. America needs to step up and do its part. Because if the Romanians find out that their biggest partner is serious about the corruption, they know it's just talk. So if the Romanians know it's just talk, then they're going to blow us off and not take us seriously.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, Europe has been affected in 2015 by the influx of the refugees from Syria.
Yes.
In your opinion, what is the path that Romania should follow on refugees?
I don't want to sound cynical, but I do know that there's an influx of refugees. From a leadership position, one has to put themselves in the shoes of the people who are homeless, the people who are fleeing the violence, and the people who are political refugees. And they are the victims of other people's fighting. But before Romania can really help other people, Romania needs to help itself. The more you can help yourself, then you're better able to help other people. Romania's got to start from within. Don't try to reach outside of your borders when you're not ready. I'm not saying turn a blind eye to people in need, but Romania needs to fix itself first. Because in the eyes of the international community, Romania's credibility is dipped. And it is dipped because of corruption. And we keep pounding this drum about corruption, and there are too many people. Some of this is the footprints of communism. Because when communism fell, it just left Romania wide open to corruption. And Romania is still suffering from that. But we can't keep making excuses about communism because that was 30 years ago. So, in moving forward, one of the things that a country like even Russia has the resources and the ability to help the refugees. They're sending sorties or bombing missions with their airplanes. So that's causing some upheaval. The United States, the UK, France, they're all giving, but I think it has to be a collective effort where everybody's moving in the right direction. For example, this fear of terrorists embedding themselves in with the refugees, and we believe it's happened. One of the options would be to give aid in place and to build facilities in all of these wealthy countries, including the United States, the UK, and France, and Germany, and others. They have the resources to build camps that would accommodate folks so that they're not without food, water, and shelter, and the proper medical resources. So once you have all that in place, you can stabilize that situation so you don't have people getting caught at the border and hungry like you saw, and people getting turned away, and then they, that's just adding to the chaos. Why not shelter in an area where there's no fighting? And why not shelter in place so that you can allow the situation to stabilize and systematically and carefully vet people into various other countries to make sure that you're not vetting in terrorists. And keep in mind that there is no foolproof, 100% guaranteed way to say that this person is not going to commit terrorist acts. But what you want to do is shrink down the window of opportunities for people to slip in under the radar or come in disguised as refugees when they're really terrorists. So you can certainly shrink down the possibilities. Meanwhile, provide humanitarian relief without just opening your borders, wondering who's coming and going with no clue. So Romania can assist in that as well. But once again, coming back to Romania needs to work on itself. And then it will be better able to help other people. And it will also do it with better credibility. Because every day that there's another corrupt scandal, from the highest office all the way down to a local police officer taking bribes for not writing a ticket all the way up to the Prime Minister's office. That's just wrong. There's no excuse for it. And Romania has nobody to blame but itself. So, but the United States needs to step up too. And if it's a real partner to Romania, then leadership has to come in and be real leaders and stop making excuses for failure.
Okay. And the final question. Which do you think are the most important goals for Romania in 2016?
Moving forward, as we come on the heels of a new year, you know, as I alluded to earlier, Romania is a beautiful place with a rich history, great culture, but the lack of leadership and the rampant corruption, it just ruins the parade. There's so much potential there. Even back during the communist days, Romania was strong in agriculture. It was one of the leading exporters of agriculture in that region. And all that stuff has changed because it's sort of like every man for himself. There are other U.S. aid and U.S. embassy programs that are giving more aid and attention, care, and consideration towards the Romanians than Romania. So countries outside of the borders of Romania are doing more for the Romanians than the Romanians. That's sad. It doesn't have to be that way. There are super wealthy Romanians that lived in Stajardi. They wouldn't give a penny to a poor person on the streets of Romania. But you'll see Americans doing it. You'll see Brits doing it. You'll see Germans doing it. But the Romanians won't help them, their own people, their poor people. It's the IGM. I got mine. Forget about everybody else. So when you see the people by the thousands outside of Romania's borders given to poor Romanians, wanting to adopt Romanian children, but the Romanian government won't let them. That's pretty sad. And Romania's got nobody to blame but itself. So sometimes Romania could be its own worst enemy, because it's not doing enough to help itself. It's not doing enough to help its own people. And then you got about 5% of the population who are super rich. And then that massive drop off because there's no middle class. They're super poor. And that 5% are basically running the country. And they got one thing in mind, themselves. And I keep going back to the poor farmer in Buzău because I was riding through Buzău on my way to Bacău and then to Piatra Neamț. I saw that farmer out there. It must have been 40 degrees Celsius, centigrade. And I said, there's a man that's making an honest living. And look at the rich, wealthy, corrupt politicians in the parliament and in the cabinet positions. And that's Stajardi, where I lived. I said, they don't see this. And I'm not even from this country. And I feel very badly for that poor farmer who's making an honest living. So to answer your question, moving forward into 2016, Romania needs to clean it up. Clean it up before you try to reach out and help somebody else, because there's too many poor people in Romania. Before you try to help Syrian refugees, help the poor Romanian people first. Help them to get on their feet and do what's right by them, and stop riding around in Bentleys and Rolls Royces and all these fancy cars that you would see at Stajardi. People at the country club feeling important. You're important if you go and help some poor people. They're only about helping themselves at big, expensive country clubs. And that's wrong. And it makes it more difficult for outsiders, like the Americans, the Brits, the Germans, the Canadians, who are genuinely interested in making Romania a better place. They're more interested than the Romanians are. That's what's hurtful. That's what's embarrassing. That's what's disappointing. And it boils down to leadership.
Thank you very much, Darren White, for the interview given for Politics Can. We're waiting you come back to Romania.
Now, you sure I'm going to get invited back after this interview? Because I was very candid about some of my comments. And you know what? You can either be a part of the problem or be a part of the solution. And if I could do anything to make a difference, a positive difference in Romania, I wouldn't have stayed there for 5 years if I didn't like it. My mandate was 3. I extended twice because I enjoyed it. I liked it there, and I enjoyed the people, the lifelong friendships I've developed there. So I have ties to your country, and I'm very much looking forward to coming back.
We're glad to hear this.
Thank you.
Thank you.